Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with DuWayne Bosse with Bolt Marketing. Well, we're seeing a lot of green on the board this morning with a few exceptions in grain and livestock futures trade. But DuWayne, let's start off talking about the soybean market. We're up for a third day here. And let's talk a little bit about, what's been pushing that? Has it been just putting weather premium in?
I think that's what it is better late than never. I've been one that's complaining that we never had a weather scare this year, and that's why we didn't get as heavily sold as we normally do, and that's a rare thing. And sure enough, just when I'm heavily sold on the soybean market, we pop in with a little bit of a weather scare. I do a conference call Monday mornings and talk to different brokers in each state, and I can't believe over the last 2 weeks how that sentiment has changed. It's been drier. And then you mix in this heat here. We had it Saturday, Sunday up here in the northern plains, and now it's in Iowa, Illinois, very hot, very humid. And everyone's talking about it taking a little bit of the top end of the soybean yield off. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we're building weather premium, believe it or not, even though it's the last week of August.
But you're still probably going to have a record crop and ending stocks building above the 560 million bushel level, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to run into later today, Michelle, in this market is, okay, even if you're taking a little bit of the top off, which number are you taking off from? Are you taking off from USDA's 53 bushel an acre national yield, or maybe the more accurate pro farmer one that's closer to 55? So if you're taking it from the 55, I think USDA still has to increase production the next USDA report, and demand hasn't been great. Honestly, I'm looking at an ending stock increasing close to 800 million bushels, and that's just not a bullish story. So I'm worried that the soybean market's going to maybe hit a bit of a ceiling here when we get close to the 20-day moving average and start to talk about things like that, like taking a little bit of the top off here isn't going to be that bad.
Yeah, where do you have that chart resistance at, DuWayne?
I think the 20-day comes in at like 993 right now. So we're just underneath that. We haven't seen the 20-day since middle of July. I think that's going to be tough resistance. Then, of course, the next one would be your psychological $10 mark. The bean market is holding in better than I anticipated. I mean, I start looking at some chart support and wonder, do we have to fall all the way to like 866 when I look at the fundamental supply and demand situation and think maybe we have to fall that far? But we're hanging in there pretty well, and maybe that's because the funds are already fairly heavily short the market, and maybe there's not a lot of people left to sell. But in about a month here, the farmer is going to be an active seller of another new crop of beans, and I don't know. It's hard for me to be friendly this time of year at the bean market anyway, with the situation we've got coming forward.
Yeah, hopefully we'll hold that 955 contract low in the November, but we're watching every darn forecast model, aren't we?
We sure are. And I was looking at Illinois just before you and I got on here, and there's a pretty decent chance just north of Lake Champaign of like a half-inch rain tomorrow. And if that starts to build and grow, we might reverse all the gains we've had in soybeans the last 3 days.
You got to believe soybeans got a little help from bean oil rallying with crude oil too. Here we've had pretty nice, like $6 better run in the crude oil market here.
Yeah, and that comes from some news in the world market on the veg oil side. So maybe a little bit better demand there. And you bet, of course that helps. But helping for now, dead cat bounce is what I'm going to call it for now. And we'll see if we can actually form a U-shaped bottom on a chart and start an upward trend. And that's where I start to think that's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. Corn has not been able to follow soybeans the last couple of sessions and the strength that we saw over there. But again, this morning, making new contract lows. And and bouncing off of those, but are we following the wheat market more so?
It sure seems like it. Corn's been kind of just a follower here lately, hasn't it? I mean, if anything, the fundamental side of corn has gotten a little bit more bullish. I say that with almost air quotes because, an ending stock near 2.0 billion isn't bullish. But if we can get it below 2.0, I kind of feel like this price should be supported here. But, our export demand has been fine, but it's not good enough. We're falling behind the USDA normal pace for new crop. And when I say a follower, yeah, the wheat market has followed other world prices down to new lows, and that seems like that's just pulled the corn market down as well. And we're kind of in a bit of a boring time of year for the corn market. The crop is fairly made. We're looking at new crop demand, and that's just blah blah. So here we sit with a little bit of a sideways range right now.
So corn and wheat both up here this morning, like we said, corn following wheat, but is that just a little short covering pop, do you think, or?
I think so right now. I mean, I can't say that, oh, there's our harvest lows and we're ready to run yet. I don't have that bullish news. And, so, 1 or 2 days doesn't make a trend, but it's nice to see. Funds are also heavily short the corn market, and they've never been short for this long. But I'm a little worried. A lot of producers out there are hoping for a nice rally off the harvest lows right this winter. But if I was a fund and I was short the market and I see these supply and demand tables we look at, and I see the carry in the market, I think they'll just stay short, Michelle. And I'm afraid they'll just sell out to the next contract, let that come down to where the previous contract expired, and just continue to roll and stay short. And that probably doesn't mean much of a winter rally here this winter.
Yeah. We should also point out that we did have a 2% drop in crop ratings on corn. I don't know if that was a little supportive here this morning too.
I think so. The market was sure talking about it last night more than I anticipated. To me, at this point in time, the crop ratings don't mean a lot.
Right.
Even as far north as I live, where the crop's got a lot to go, I'm just not following it very close. But you're right. The trade sure talked about it last night and this morning.
Yeah. So do you think we're getting close to having all the bearishness of this record yield that we're projecting for corn worked into the market? I say that as we continue to make new contract close here day after day and then bounce.
I know, but I think you bring up a good point. The big crop size, it's not like we haven't known that. That's not new news, is it? That's why we got down to these levels price wise. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like actively selling the corn market here, and I'm not selling it on my farm either, because I feel like, year over year, our stocks to use ratio isn't that different than last year. So I'm going to try to store the corn and hope for some sort of weather rally. But the beans, I probably won't. We're short the board right now, hedged on our farm. When we harvest them, we'll probably look to sell the carry right away in the market, because I'm just worried, like I said earlier, I think that carry just drops down to the nearby prices. If we're going to say, well, South America, maybe they have a weather scare. Well, if you see the projections from what Brazil's expected to produce this winter for soybeans, we need a big weather scare for it to matter down there.
Yeah. And you mentioned the funds being record short for this time of year, really, and all the grains. We're going into first notice day here on Friday. Once we get that out of the way, is there something that you think could spark the funds here to maybe cover those short positions?
I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, and that sucks. But I think it's very worth noting that they're in that position. A lot of times these markets change directions for reasons I can't think of and I can't predict. Just know that they are record short, and if something happens bullish wise, we could have a nice rally. I mean, maybe next spring it gets crazy wet in the Midwest and we struggle to plant the crop. I mean, that's a possibility, but that's a long ways out too. In the short term over this winter, I don't see China stepping in and buying enough from us to really make them scared of being short their positions. That's why I'm just worried they're just going to keep rolling positions for a while.
Absolutely. And do you think there's a lot of farmer selling that's still taking place of old crop especially?
It's interesting. We keep talking about the old crop on farm storage, right? And it's got to come in. Farmers are going to be big sellers, and it continues to really not come in, at least not really in my area. The basis is okay. I'm even getting some phone calls from end users that are looking for some more contracted bushels for new crop here. But when you think about it in farmers' mentality, this price just keeps dropping lower and lower, right? And every day I know I tend to do the same thing, like, well, I want to sell, but I'm not selling today at the lows, and then it gets lower and lower. So I guess we're going to find out right before harvest if those bushels do have to come in or not. And you mix that with all the rail situations and question marks we've got there, I'm a little bit worried what could happen. Man, it sounds so bearish. I don't mean to sound bearish on one of those rare days where we're got green on the screen, but I just kind of am.
Yeah, one last question about wheat, and then we'll move on to cattle. But hearing that, we have some harvest pressure in Minneapolis wheat, obviously, but hearing quality is a concern there. There's some problems.
Yeah, there sure is. Vomitoxin is a problem. It's hard to predict. We're encouraging everyone to take samples from each field, get them tested yourself. Some fields are fine, others are really bad levels, but the yield isn't a problem, Michelle, which we kind of predicted all year. It was a very good growing season for spring wheat, and yields are very high.
Cattle market mostly higher again this morning. We had a bullish outside day higher yesterday. We're building on it. Can we keep going here, do you think?
I don't know. This market kind of surprised me. I think it surprised a lot of people. Friday we ended the week with a kind of bearish cattle and feed report, but not that far off of the trade estimates. We got lower cash market, quite a bit lower, really. We're getting closer now. The national average is at 184 area, which is right where August is at. October is a bit of a discount to cash, but that's normal for this time of year. So kind of thought the market was going to struggle yesterday, and we did gap lower, and then, man, did we reverse higher and came back. I don't know if that's algos just kind of messing with us, playing with this market a little bit, getting it higher so they can sell it again, or did we just run out of sellers? I mean, everyone's maybe out of longs that wanted to be out, and maybe anyone who wanted to be short is already short, but I can't really sit here and say I'm bullish this market. I think the trend continues to be lower. I think cash grinds lower. I'm hearing inventory is going to get a lot bigger in the future, but that's something the Packer kind of always tells me to.
Yeah. Some of it will depend on what the cash does this week. We've had, I think, 4 lower weeks. So that's been narrowing that discount to the future. So that's been part of this, hasn't it?
It sure has. And remember, next week's a holiday. So it's a holiday shortened week. Now, I don't think they have to buy for that week, but I'm hearing things like one packer is buying for October already. But that's the guy who's telling me the inventory is coming in plenty high now. So, if that's true, then there's no need to pay up. And remember, those carcass weights are still a problem. We kind of have to sell them, I think. So I still got to lean a little bearish. I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm just worried about this market here.
All right. Thanks for joining us. DuWayne Bosse with Bull Marketing. That is Markets Now.